What is up, fam? I'm here with Morgan Rodney Agura. It's been a while. We've been trying to do this for a while. They finally committed. Usually got to catch these guys on a last-minute kind of deal. Otherwise, they just won't show up. But happy you guys are here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. Aaron, Rodney, today we want to talk about a little bit about men, specifically Christian men, because you are a men's pastor, Rodney, and you deal with a lot of guys, their problems. And we'll just kind of start with the first question, and then we'll see where it leads. But first question I wanted to ask you, and Aaron, feel free to chime in on what you know and what you've experienced. What is like the main thing that you hear over and over again, or a few different things that men deal with and struggle with when it comes to their faith, Christian faith, even just in general? Doesn't even have to be specifically Christian stuff.
Yeah, I will, if you don't mind, I'll start. And I want to actually go, I'll go with something that is first. Probably not obvious, not the very first thing that you would probably think I would talk about when it comes to like men's struggles. I feel that a lot of men struggle with some type of like self-awareness. Yeah. Whether young, whether old. I think nowadays we all maybe it's because of the social temperature, I'm not sure, but we all are kind of like just set in how we think. Yes. And so we just project that on anything and everyone, not realizing like, okay, maybe I need to understand first before I want other people to understand where I'm coming from. Yeah. Understand where other people are coming from. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah.
Or like who they're talking to as well, right? Like the social temperature, like calling the 80-year-old guy at men's bro all the time or something like that.
Yeah.
Or is that what you mean by social situation too?
Yeah, definitely. I just feel a lot of dudes will even say like guys that want friends or want community. And then they'll enter a community and like literally obliterate the whole, tribe with just awkward things.
Give some examples if you can. Like, what does that look like? Obliterate the whole tribe. Obviously, you're not going to use names, but can you give some?
It's funny you brought that up though. Like, I was going to say the subject I was going to say is loneliness. I was going to say I think almost one of the biggest things. I mean, that guys struggle with, and like if we just want to talk about it in relation to men's, which I'm sure it spreads out into the rest of the world too, but I would say is loneliness. But then I said, well, we can't get too specific here. A lot of my interactions with guys, though, I'm like, well, of course, like you're making it horrible, or there's God putting 27 people around you that could be your friend. Yeah. And you're just hyper-focusing on the one subject or the one thing you like, not realizing that we all have things as humans we could just be connected about that have nothing to do with our hobbies sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, before I go on like the empathetic, compassion side of things, because I do remember how it felt to be alone. Yeah, you brought up a good point. Loneliness spurs or produces weirdness sometimes, or all the time, I would say. Like, and I think that's where some of these men are coming from. They're alone. Then they finally get put into or they discover some type of community, and then they bring their alone self to the community, and then they just kind of just get super awkward or say silly things.
It's like draining.
Yeah, and it's like it's not about like I remember when I went to the church that I go to now. I was 22 years old, didn't know anybody. They didn't have men's community. They didn't have these social networks that we're all used to having now. It seems like every church has every type of community, right? Anyways, when I was there, I didn't have anything. So I spent a whole year all by myself. And I know, like, by the end of that year, I didn't know really how to be around people. I didn't know how to talk to people. Like, somebody that grew up around like friend circles all my life, I was so alone and in my head. Yeah. So it was, it was really awkward when I would come around people, shout out to that first friend I ever had at the church I'm at. Like, he sat and was patient with me because I would sit in his living room or go to his social functions, his kickbacks or whatever, and I would either say things to make the whole room awkward, or I would start talking crap about somebody that's his close friend, not realizing, you know, and it was hard. So, like, my heart does go out to these guys that, like, they start getting community, but, you know, public service announcement, like, you got to have some self-awareness, like you're not, you know, you're not as, what is this, like, being alone could really institutionalize you.
Yeah, closed-minded thinking. Yeah. So you're saying that a lot of this weirdness comes from a lack of self-awareness, is what you're basically saying, right?
Yeah, sure.
How does one obtain self-awareness?
I think, honestly, I hate to admit this, but there's a lot of different types of intelligences. Like athletes, their brains know how to communicate to their muscles better than the average person. Or like some people see numbers and they just see them aligning themselves. Some people see color and they just know what goes with each other. But there is an aspect to it, I think, is a certain type of intelligence. I think there's a psychological and a social type of intelligence that some people just have more naturally. And then there's the problem is that people that are good at it, they don't realize that it could be a gift from God, actually, like their social skills or how to speak to people. So then there could be the struggle with them to look around and be like, geez, what's wrong with all these people? It's easy to talk to people. Yeah. But I think there's a natural gifting for it. But I think people trip out, like, especially men. Women aren't into specific hobbies a lot of times as much as men, but men think that their friends have to relate to hobbies. Like, there's some crazy people that like pro wrestling. There's people that are into cars, so they think that all their friends have to relate to cars. Or like pro wrestling guys, like all their friends have to be some guys that like watching guys in tights, you know. But
hey, brother.
But like,
I tell you what, I get really hyped when someone else is into pro wrestling, man. It's like, oh, you're into this weird stuff too? It's great.
But I think too, like, if we're both into golf, bro. Okay, we can be. But really, if we're all stranded on an island, none of that stuff would matter.
Right.
The friendship goes beyond that. It's how do we think? And like, to me, a lot of hobbies, the hobbies are more the excuse to end up hanging out. Like, oh, we both like to go do this thing. But the actual relational aspects that we enjoy has nothing to do with the hobby. It's the conversation. I think a lot of times when I do stuff with friends, half of the enjoyment is driving to the event. Is really just being in the car together, and then where are we going to go eat afterwards?
That's true.
Like, you go see a band perform or whatever. You don't talk to each other most of the time you're there. You talk on the way there. Yeah. And, hey, where are we going to go eat afterwards? And I think people focus on the wrong part of the friendship sometimes. Like, what are we going to do so much? Or, oh, well, we don't even have the same hobbies in common. Or I don't think that stuff even matters that much, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's real. I think people get it flip-flop where they prioritize or they even put too much time into doing stuff together as friends when it's like a hobby, whether it's playing golf or going to an event or anything like that, where they're not really actually sitting down having real conversations about real stuff and the stuff that they're going through. And I can even think of a few friendships where it's like that, and even before, where almost all my friendships were like that, and I had like one or two friends that I could be real with. Because, I don't know, for me, it was like I didn't want to ever break that barrier of, oh, we're going to talk about the Lakers right now. So we're talking about the Lakers, and then that conversation ends, and it's like, how are you actually doing? And a lot of friendships that I have had and even still do have never get to that point where it's like, how are you actually? Mm-hmm. So is it just, like, for me, I can tell you and it has a lot to do with the family that I grew up in. Maybe, Rodney, you can talk about this because you just graduated with a degree in
psychology and counseling.
Maybe you could talk about this too, Rodney and Aaron. A lot to do with how I grew up. I just struggle with breaking that barrier of feeling like it's going to be awkward if I actually tell people the stuff that I'm going through, or if I actually listen to what they're going through, and I don't know how to take it. I feel like I'm way better at receiving than actually telling people what I'm going through. But what do you think about that?
Well, before I even speak on that, about the whole self-awareness thing, I don't know if we shifted gears, but I'm going to downshift really quick.
Yeah.
To help whoever might need to hear this. I really believe in the power of socialization to where it's like say, for instance, oh gosh, sorry. I mean, I think they've done a lot better with the homeschooling thing. But I would say going back to homeschooling in the 90s, I would
that's
say.
That's valid, bro.
Yeah?
That's valid.
Yeah, so, like, I feel like.
In the 90s, you were weird.
Yeah. Whoa. Kidding. I didn't want to go there. I didn't say it. Sorry.
But when I was growing up, if you were homeschooled, you were weird.
Well, I'm not gonna say you were weird, but I could guess who was homeschooled.
Yeah,
like all of a sudden they go to summer camp and they're either like bouncing off the walls, like they've never been let out the house before, or
right. And so, like, with that said, when it comes to people with self-awareness or people that might struggle with self-awareness, you kind of like just gotta allow them to enter in and be socialized, like like those rock tumblers that make you smooth or whatever. Like if you come into my friend circle, like you will. I mean, it's not a closed circle either. Everybody's welcome.
Yeah.
But no, like if you're gonna come, you don't go into somebody's house and start rearranging their room.
Like your hard edges are gonna get bumped up a little
bit.
That's a good example.
And I think that's what happens. Or like they all of a sudden they want to dominate, or they want to change the plans that's already been like planned, and it's like, bro, like
that's some real life example.
It is a real life example, but it's even like
that's a good example.
Yeah, but even my case, I had to have my own self-awareness going back to what I went through. It's like, wow, like I really said something stupid. Like, oh wow, I was rude to my friends. Longtime friend, thinking all of a sudden I'm super close to this guy, not realizing this guy went to school in high school. So I would say it was the power of the Holy Spirit and self-awareness that had me realize, like, wow, like I'm entering somebody else's world and I'm thankful to be invited. But because of socialization, I have to learn the way of what's going on there. Like,
yeah.
And that's all part of growing up too.
Yeah.
So
I think you said something that I've been trying to work on more in the last few years is I'm pretty comfortable with talking to anybody about anything, but
yes, you are.
But also offending people, and like I think it's healthy. Like I've really been, even in the Bible, I'm like, dang man, Paul goes hard. He's not worried about if anybody. If you really look at it, Jesus went pretty hard too, and like, but there's a thing like sometimes things I would joke about. I don't know everyone's secret things that have happened to them throughout their life. So you can make a joke about, like, in the multitude of words, sin is not lacking for sure. So where I've been guilty though is socially, like I might make a joke about like, oh, that fool can't fight or this or that or whatever, not knowing that someone in the group got beat up 10 times.
Yeah.
And for them, it's still like a really hard thing to deal with, and I'm making jokes about it. So
he's referring at times that we've sparred, like trained sparring, and he realized, dang, this guy really doesn't know how to fight. I just thank God that I fought in the times when no one knew how to fight. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
and you always had guns.
Back in the day, no one knew MMA yet.
Yeah, they weren't trained how to like actually kill someone with their hands.
But yeah. Gouging people's eyes out, chairs, all that stuff.
That's WWE.
I think for me though, like I'm kind of on the opposite where I'm not. It's not like I'm the quiet guy, but I need to be careful of what I'm talking about as well, to make some of those newcomers or the people that are more quiet in the group, or it's not even about that. It's just you don't know what offends people, and you can't always you can't always pad everything you say. We can never talk to each other. Something's always going to offend someone, but there's a lot of times when I've made jokes where I'm in a car with 8 people. And I think it's no big deal. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, shoot, my foot's in my mouth. Like,
And no, something I learned too. Something I,
I don't know
learned
if you're
too.
saying that in relation to me, exactly.
No, I've done the same thing. Yeah.
No, something I learned from my own, like, I don't know, my pastors too, is like reading the room and knowing who your audience is. And that's something I had to learn like later in my life, because I just thought, oh, I could just say anything. I could be real. We're family here. I learned quick and learned the hard way. Like, you can't do that. You'll find yourself in the HR room.
What was the point?
For the 5th time. So to switch forward.
Back in the other.
What was the answer? Oh, upbringing and stuff like that.
I was talking about that, yeah.
Yeah, and how...
I don't remember the exact question.
Well, the question was... let me just answer it. Like, when it comes to friendships and how we approach friendships, everything springs from our childhood, right? But as Christians, everything should spring from the gospel.
Yep.
Like if we have like a gospel, let me just say it this way. The first scripture I ever learned in the church setting and when it comes to community and friendships, and I learned this when I didn't even have friends, is that in the book of Ephesians it says that we have been made accepted in the beloved. Because I didn't feel like I belonged.
Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, so I didn't feel like I belonged. Jesus, because of what he's done on the cross for us, he has made us accepted in his family.
What reasons or like what aspects did you not feel like you belonged though?
The background I had, the way I looked, the way I act, and the way I talked. When I started going to the church that I was going, the church I go to now, it was very straight-laced, probably like 80% Caucasian. There was literally like 4 other Filipinos there.
Yeah.
We would wave at each other like, and I felt out of place. Or even in the news circles, I felt out of place. But so my tip to people that might struggle with that is we have to come from a place of knowing we're accepted already. I'm not going to try to make friendships to be accepted. I'm going to make friendships coming from a place like I'm accepted by God. I'm accepted by even those that love me and my family. Like, I'm not trying. I think a lot of people try to spend time earning, proving, and striving. And God's not calling us to strive anymore.
Yeah.
We're to come from a place of peace and a place of like, I'm accepted. I'm good. Like, I accept myself. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, it's okay to give other people space to shine. And in this case, other people space to talk. And I think that Prime got to me.
I think though, really like
sponsored by
If Logan Paul wants to sponsor me, I won't be mad.
I think really too though that it's how you walk in a room too is like to feel accepted. I really think like when a lot of people walk in a room and wonder if anyone will like them. I don't do that. I walk in a room and wonder why someone wouldn't like me. And
that's a good one.
And it doesn't come from a place of pride, but like, if you needed help with something, I'd probably help you. Mm-hmm. I could probably make you laugh. Like on a real level, I could talk to you as a human. Like I'm not the richest. I'm not the best looking or all these different things, but just our value. You can go to the value thing 2 different ways. You can go like, oh, we're image bearers of God, so intrinsically we all have value. But I think sometimes that's hard to apply to real life social situations. Like that sounds good on paper, but one person can, I don't know. I go into the room with that mindset, and I don't think it even comes from a false sense of pride or haughtiness or anything like that. But I feel like we all have, like, what don't I have to offer that someone else does?
Right.
Right.
So one person has a different value than another person in certain areas.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think going in, can I tell you guys what I think is a turnoff for me with people being friends?
Sure.
I think the victim mentality and people like whining a lot, like, oh, well, why didn't I get invited? Bro, that's the first person I almost don't want to invite again next time. Like,
but Nick says that all the time. TFTI.
Yeah, TFTI to things I probably won't even go to. It's great. I just do it for fun.
But I think that is hard is like, in all of our lives, when you include people from work and people from church and people you grew up with and people you work out with and people that like you have your one hobby and that's the only thing you share in common and all this, to invite all these different groups of people or all these people to one thing, it's like, I know my value too. If I don't get invited to something, I'm like, whatever. They probably didn't even have as many laughs if I wasn't there, But I know that the group setting though, for me, it's a big turnoff when people bring in that victim thing. Like, it's hard. It's like it perpetuates. It gets even worse. And when instead of that drawing people to them, that pushes people more away.
It does.
And it's I don't know.
I mean, something I learned a while back was we gotta embrace the awkwardness. And I think for some, like I've learned to embrace the awkwardness, and for some, like when it gets awkward, that's kind of where, how can I say this? Like you know what you're really made of when the pressure's on, right? So when that awkwardness is like starting to press on you, things just start coming out.
Yeah.
Right. But I think when we learn how to manage like how we feel when we're awkward, and when we accept the fact that it's okay. It's okay. Like, I'm okay with not talking right now. I'm going to let somebody else talk. I'm okay with not being the funny. Maybe in other circles, I'm the funniest dude in a circle. But this time, I could be the quietest one, and I'm okay. Because the reason why I'm saying that is, like, I feel like a lot of dudes, especially, say, in the community setting or in a godly, in like a Bible study setting, we're, like, moving everybody out the way because I need to let you know I know.
Yeah.
I need to let you know that I know about this, and my advice is the most important.
Who can flex the hardest spiritually?
Who can flex the hardest? You know,
it's so cheesy with Christians sometimes. Honestly, like,
he caught himself.
No, but there's this movie. I don't know. Can we say movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one movie, Everything All at Once, right? Everything, anything and everything all at once.
The whole wide universe in the world.
Yeah, I watched it with my group of friends. I realized I was the only creative that actually enjoyed those types of things. But with that said, there's a line in there that the guy says, "We're all fighting," because there was a part where everybody's fighting, and it says, "We're all fighting. Why are we fighting?" Right? It's because we're scared. And I feel like there's a lot of people that just come together, like, and they're so scared to not be accepted for who they are. They're so scared to not know. They're so scared to be thought of that they don't know. So they fight and they level up. If we just relax.
Like jockeying for position.
Yeah, jockeying for position. Yeah. Let me talk bad about you because I'm going to have a better podcast than you and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I have a better...
You come off way better when you hype up other people, though, honestly.
Exactly.
Like, it makes you look more confident that you have extra confidence to give to other people, too.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like... it's like the Pareto distribution. And it's... Okay, I don't know the addresses for all the scriptures, but I know, like... To him who has a lot, more will be given.
Yeah.
This is I'm paraphrasing it kind of, but like a social term for that is like the Pareto distribution, where it's like a snowball. When you have a lot of friends, you keep attaching and getting more friends. When you act like a victim and like, oh, no one wants to be my friends, that's exactly what it does. You're going to have less friends. And it's like, it works a lot like that in this area too, I think is, you act friendly, you're gonna have a lot of friends. You whine a whole bunch, you're not gonna have a lot of friends. And I don't think the thing a lot is necessarily the highest value either, though, because you can have a lot of friends that don't know anything about you, and that's not really helping much.
Right.
I mean, there's social benefits in a lot of friends too, like just from men's. Bro, out of those 200 guys that if you rotate all the not there every week guys, like probably closer to 260 or 280 or something. But when you rotate all those guys in, there is someone that has every single career you could think of there.
Yeah.
You need a lawyer, there's probably someone's a lawyer. A plumber, someone that does fishing charters, you got it. Someone that prints T-shirts, you got it. So there is a value in a number of friends in that way. But also, I don't need 80 people to be texting every day either. Like, right. I don't need that many friends on that level. But I think the thing with friendships too, it's about doing life together. It's not always about like, hey, we need to buy tickets to some big sporting event.
Right.
It's just for me, the simplest way to have friends is to eat. Like, we're all probably going to at least eat around an average at least 2 meals a day. If someone also works within a 5-mile vicinity of you, try to get lunch together. Like, you're going to be doing it anyway. So a lot of stuff like, hey, I got to go Home Depot. Your friend lives by you or their office is by your office. You want to go? I keep it simple with a lot of stuff just like that. Like,
yeah, that's good.
That thought just kind of dropped off, but
no, that was good. Yeah, so we've kind of come into this idea of friendships and self-awareness. I want to go back to self-awareness and ask you guys. So self-awareness is a good thing, but too much of anything can be a bad thing.
True.
So if you have too much self-awareness, what does that look like, and how can it be negative?
Yeah, you end up being bound to it. You end up being, now you're just self-editing all the time. And then the trick trick on that is I just really feel I can't be myself around anybody. You know what I mean? It's like to have too much self-awareness. Now you're you're keeping yourself from really being free.
Yeah.
And I think, which adds another, like for me, like I do have close friends. I do have self-awareness everywhere I go, at least I try to. But I know that there's level or circles of friendships that I have that I don't have to have much self-awareness because why? Because they love me.
Yeah.
And they accept me.
Or they've kind of accepted terms like we're all going to be able to joke on the same level. Mm-hmm. Like we already know the rules of the fight. Like
right.
We're biting, poking, gouging eyes. Like we're doing everything. And so if you know that, and then someone can step into that friend group and be like, whoa, these guys like joke around a lot. Like,
and it's a matter of trust.
Yeah.
It's a matter of trust. It's a matter of relationship. It's a matter of acceptance and respect. You know, like I think the hardest thing as Christians is, can I really be myself without being judged? You know, that's number one. Like,
oh, bro,
I love going to this men's thing because of you, you know, which I beat myself up over all the time. Like, you're not polished and you're not perfect like all the other pastors. But the thing I like about it is because of that, I could be myself. You know, and it's like, oh, okay, sheesh. You know, I'm over here beating myself up. Like, I got to, like, be better and this and that. But it's like, people want to go and be themselves everywhere they go.
It's good.
Yeah.
I think there's an aspect to being yourself that, you know, like kind of like the glass is half full or half empty kind of thing is people feel so entitled that they need to get to be themselves all the time.
Right.
Where, like, I think we're all like diamonds. Some have more facets than others, but like, I'm not telling my grandma everything I'm going to talk to you guys about.
Right.
And I don't feel limited or held back like some victim with my grandma, like, oh, I wasn't getting to be myself. I'm fully aware in certain situations. Like if I'm talking to like 5 teenagers, I'm going to have a different conversation than I'm talking to 2 grown men. Or if I'm talking to like a guy and 2 girls at church and we're in a small group talking, the conversation, and I don't feel like restricted. It like, just because it's your right doesn't mean it's right in a lot of situations.
Your grandma really seemed to like me being myself.
Crazy.
I think like if we can see the glasses,
inside joke,
us not being like limited so much, like oh well, I didn't get to say everything I wanted to say, and I'm like, dude, you let different parts of you shine in different situations, and I think, and I don't expect to talk like about every hobby or thing I've ever liked in my whole life with everybody, and I'm fine with that. Like it doesn't bother me. Like some people don't want to talk about film, or some people don't want to talk about whatever the subject is, and I think like not feeling the entitlement that we have to get everything we think out in every conversation is fine too. Yeah, and that's why you have different friends. And when I really started learning this stuff, I think is when I liked skateboarding when I was a teenager, and then I got in a band in my late teens, and sometimes like. You think you want to hang out with 10 other skaters because you love skateboarding, but we didn't listen to the same music. We didn't have the same morals. I really noticed it when I was in a band. You end up hanging out with these other bands because you play a similar style of music. And I'm like, man, I have like nothing in common with these fools. Like we kind of dress the same and play the same instruments, but I get along better with like the gangster guys back in my neighborhood. Or
why is he pointing at me? I'm not like gangster right now.
I was pointing way past him when I was talking about gangsters. Or like whatever the style is, though. I realized that I think I was very blessed to kind of see that like in my teens that like this outward stuff of what we like doesn't really matter. Like I guess that's the thing about being entitled to like you got to talk about your favorite things with every group of people.
Tim Keller says. True humility is not thinking of yourself at all, but is thinking of yourself less so that we can think of others. And I would say the bad side or the dark side of being too self-aware is it doesn't give room for us to think of others. And that's what we're called to do. Yeah. You know, in social settings, be interested in interests of others, right? So if we're so caught up in ourselves, then it's kind of like a no-brainer as to why we're still lonely. You see what I'm saying? Because if we're always trying to think of ourselves and have self-awareness, we're not even allowing anyone in because we're just still in our world. Because you could be alone even though you're around 40 people.
Yep.
Well, like the term self-aware too, I guess it's like you got to define the terms first. Because truly being perfectly self-aware, you would be balanced. Like it wouldn't go too far either way because you would be aware of where you're positioning yourself in the group. Man, I feel like we could go off on so many things from just about the thing of the being humble and the almost, I think, fake humility. Like when I was a little kid growing up, I always thought the meek will inherit the earth meant like you were like shy or you were handicapped or something like where you couldn't talk. But it's kind of like if you look up, what was that written in? Was that Aramaic probably?
I have no idea.
You know,
Rodney, pastor?
Is that the Beatitudes?
Yeah, Aramaic.
Like
Randall.
Aaron Morgan.
Lebanese. It was
Like,
Lebanese.
But like that term being meek is really more, it means like a warrior that knows how to be gentle. And I think if we really, that helped me a lot with thinking about how to be a man, actually.
I'm very meek.
Like my boy JP always says too, like it's a value to have teeth and not bite someone. If you have no teeth, what righteousness is there in not biting anybody? But I think in that jockeying for position and stuff, when it comes to men, a lot of times, like if you know you have teeth, you don't have to nip at everyone all the time.
Right.
And being truly meek is you're secure knowing you have the teeth, but you could also you can go down to the level of the gentlest person in the group as well, you know. And I think you don't need to prove yourself all the time or anything, which is exhausting with non-Christians. I think it's so much easier with Christians, and it sucks. I think with Christians, we get wrapped up in a lot of these social dilemmas or whatever you want to call them as well. But I notice when I'm in a group of non-Christians, and especially when it's a group that are only around each other for one like-minded hobby, like cars or a sports team, oh my gosh, the jockeying for position is like ridiculously out of control. Because that's where their value is found, or their personhood, or who they are. When we can like come together and we know our identity is in God, like we're an image bearer of God, then all that jockeying for position, I think, should fall away to some degree.
Right. And being at peace with yourself. Like it took me a while to get to the place where I'm at peace with who I am, who God created me to be, like who my friends are, how I look, yada, yada, yada. Well, we could go there. We could do a whole podcast of how I look, but I'm fine. I'm fine with, I'm good. And it doesn't make me have to push people out the way. Like when I'm hanging out with, like, say, whenever we hang out or whatever, one of my biggest joys is seeing a group of people just enjoying.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of times like I don't get nothing out of it really other than just seeing everybody enjoy. And then I make conversation. Sometimes I'm just so darn tired. Ever since moving out here, I've gone, I think the earliest I've been home is, 1 a.m.
Jeez.
No, okay, midnight. But still, it's just a joy to let others have their fun. And I'm having fun too. So
that's a new joy for me in the last year or two, since I've actually let myself have community with people at church and not like living some mysterious life where no one knows me. But just with my space, like where my business is, we've used it for several social gatherings, and I'm not even always engaging with people, but I like to just stand back and I'm like, there's 2 conversations going on over there and 2 people over here, and these people are showing each other something about whatever on their phone, and it's like, wow. I understand now something I didn't understand before of the blessing of being the host, and the joy you get from other people having joy. And I guess it's kind of like what it must be like to be a parent. I'm not a parent, but I guess you get that joy from your kids being happy, and it is so when you facilitate that space for people to connect, and that's what Men's is doing really all the time. Like I look around and I see like all these different dudes chopping it up and exchanging phone numbers and stuff. It's cool.
Yeah. I got nothing else.
What the? How about ask? Like, what do we do when it seems like, what do you do when it's like somebody's really not jiving, with like...
They can't hear you.
Oh, they can't hear me?
No, they can.
Oh, no, I was telling you to ask it. That's why.
Oh, you can ask. Just talk. Yeah.
No, I don't want to talk.
What were we gonna ask?
I'm not the podcaster host.
This is why I don't talk as much, because people don't ask me the questions. I ask them the questions.
Right.
But it is my podcast. I'm the host. So I'm trying to host you guys as you guys were talking about.
Me.
And let you guys have the floor.
I mean, we're kind of keeping it in the realm of like community and friendships now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing about the friendships now is like I feel like taking it, like not me taking it, but I do see it naturally, like forming in, like having substance, like just like what he was saying, Aaron was saying earlier about people forming community around like, what is this, like, what is
surface stuff or
like, surface stuff, hobbies, whatever, interests. It's great. But the thing that I'm noticing is that our community is actually now forming into like more deeper things where we do talk about life issues, or we pray for each other, laugh with each other, help each other in practical
It's all
things.
about walking with each other.
Yeah,
like
Did you just throw up a W?
Yeah, walking. Not in some philosophical way. I mean that way too, but just literally going on walks with each other. Like this guy right here has been this leader of the walks. Like we go out and eat 1,000 calories. So he's like, hey, everyone needs to walk. So in the last 2 years, we've had groups of just 1 or 2 people, all the way up to like 20 some people walking around at 11 o'clock at night, wherever we ended up eating. And I think about it, like I think we're not very like conscious a lot of times of how different our culture is now than it was for the last 4,000 to 6,000 years. Like cars and planes and trains and all this stuff, that's only been around for the last 75 years. And like still most of the people in the world don't even own a car. I forget what percentage you're in, but you're like in the top 2 to 5% of, maybe it's 10%, whatever. The point is it's pretty drastic.
This is why you need a producer too. They'd be looking it up like right now.
Yeah.
You got that? Okay. Less than 10%. Less than 10% of the people on the planet actually own a car. So most people, for thousands of years, all our ancestors, they would walk everywhere together. Like, hey, you're going to walk to get water too? Okay, we're all going to walk to get water. Hey, you need to walk to the blacksmith? I'm going to walk with you too. And such a common form of bonding with relationships was literally physically walking. The journey to like, someone here, we're going to drive from Long Beach to LA, 45 minutes, no big deal. When they needed to go that distance back in the day, that was like a day's journey for them. And they walked there with their friends. And I felt like, I mean, it can sound like a little cheesy, like you're going to tell your friend like, oh, let's go for a walk. But on the real, I've had some of the best business conversations, theological conversations, relationship conversations, all while walking.
Yeah, I'll say this. If you want to fast track the community, just hang out with Rodney and Aaron and their group, because the recent guy joined your guys' group and like he didn't know nothing about the church or anything. He is in the fast track in community right now, hanging out with you guys like every night. I hear he's getting in trouble with his work because he's staying out too late. But all in the name of community and building.
Which guy are you talking about?
Exactly. There's too many to even keep track of. The statistic, I think it said 18% of households in the world own a car.
And that's households.
Or people. I don't know.
No, I think it's something like that. So like that, I don't know. The point is we have so many ways of isolating now. We're now like in the Western culture and affluent countries like America, a lot of Europe and stuff. Asia, wherever. We have to look for reasons to hang out, and I think that's where a big problem is like, okay, so we have to spend money to hang out. We have to go to a sporting event.
That's true.
We have to go out to eat. Where anywhere you go out to eat, you're going to be dropping $30 at least now, or whatever it is. Where throughout history, or you look at the Amish, they got to build something. They're all building it together. So it wasn't about thinking of fun things to do. They did life. It was practical. It was just surviving. You were in community already, and you didn't have to really plan all these events out and stuff. It just was part of daily life. And I think if we can think of friendships like that, more incorporating just our lives into each other and not having to plan some big old event all the time, it makes it a lot easier to do community that way.
Yeah, it's good. Hey, thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. I hope you were blessed by the conversation. If you wouldn't mind just leaving a quick comment, let me know what you thought of the conversation, as well as share it with a friend, and even subscribe to stay up to date with all content just like this. I love you guys, and I hope to hear from you soon.